What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. Amazon Kindle Create Space. Raising Dependent Adults. I was listening to Zoe Williams again, and he was like counseling somebody or just coaching somebody, like life coaching. And oh yeah, link will be in, or the book will be in the description box below. Sorry. And he was talking about how the new generation is kind of different from being a tight knit family where everybody comes together, but everybody actually can handle their own business as individuals. To we're in a society where you got adults who basically still are dependent to their parents. So you could have, uh, you know, grandparents. The grandparents are still, in some ways, the parent and child, well, the grandparent and child are still super close to the point where um, they're still dependent on each other. And then the child is dependent on the grandparents and the parent. So everybody is cohesively interdependent on each other in an unhealthy way. You know, he at the time he was talking about like grandmothers who have children, and they cling to the to their mother, because that's the grandmother at the time. But they cling to their mother, and then their children cling to them, and nobody actually leaves the nest because they are in this codependent relationship where one person has to feel important, like they're being depended on, and the other person can't really spread their wings or leave the nest because they don't have the skills to survive on their own. So in some ways, people are raising dependence. And there's a lot of arrested development out here where, you know, you see a lot of young adults. And I remember even when I was in college, high school, college, and as an adult, there were a lot of um, young adults to grown, you know, to just grown people who just can't leave home. They always got to be, they always got to be at their mama house. Always. Not like the Sunday dinner type of thing. I'm talking about the Sunday dinner, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday dinner, you know, maybe Thursday I got sick or I worked overtime, I couldn't go over there. And Friday, I wanted to turn up, but Saturday, I'm there, and then Sunday we back at it again. Well, you can't really live without your parent being in your life like that, and the parent can't really survive in that way. So because they need to be dependent on, and then and then the kids are the same way. And now, part of, especially from a male perspective, part of the reason why some of these women don't have grown don't are dating men who supposed to be who are grown by age but not grown by ability and action is because they've been groomed to be dependent on women. And even some of these younger women, like, these guys can't do nothing. They need a girl to tell them what to do. And that's part of a lot of chicks dating potential, because potential in some ways has to do with dependency. Because if he can potentially be good, he's still dependent on you. He needs your validation. He needs to stay with you. He needs your resources. He needs you to tell him what to do to become a man, when it's not gonna work. But if that, it's he's accustomed to being a dependent, and in a sense, some of these women are accustomed to being dependent on. So, and since the roles are backwards, it creates this backward situation. Same thing with the girls, right? Like, the girls are taught to be independent of everybody, but at the same time, uh, independent of men, but dependent on their mothers or women. So, you know, So they can easily have teamwork with women, even if it's detrimental to their life, their relationships, or just detrimental to their growth. But because they were groomed to be dependent on the female energy. They were also groomed that the male energy is inconsistent and messed up. So guess what? They're not trusting of men, so it's always a fight with guys, and that causes them problems because you find yourself around people who actually have good intentions, but they're adults, so they carry themselves like adults, and you can't actually function like an adult. So, in order to keep them in your life, the best thing you could do is create a conflict. Not y'all enemies because you don't know how to have a decent relationship with an adult because you were taught to be dependent on everybody. So now what? Now on top of that, to me, that's why I see you know a lot of things not working out. I see young men who just don't have any kind of get up and go work ethic, because and I see that families don't actually encourage them to have any get up and go. They don't encourage them to be problem solvers. They don't encourage them to be um, how can I say this, go getters. They don't encourage them to attack their fears and see if they can create something out of nothing. They just encourage them to just sit at home, complain, whine, and wait on somebody to do something for them. And that's not going to work. That's actually very much so detrimental to their lives and their self-esteem, their egos, or their ability to conquer the world or accomplish anything because they sit back waiting on everything to happen to them as if the world is full of free lunches. Ain't no free lunch out here. But they were raised to be dependent, you know, and you can't really get mad about it. You can get mad about it. I'll take that, but you get mad about it. But when you start looking at these families, you realize, you know, um, normally when a grandmother dies, and then everybody else falls apart because everybody was dependent on the grandmother for their wisdom, even if the grandmother wasn't that wise to begin with, you know. So when it's the parents' time to actually take over the mantle of the leadership position in the family, they can't do it because they weren't groomed to be leaders either, whether they're male or female. It didn't really matter because you were raised independent adults. They never were able to fend for themselves or go out into this world and answer the bell and answer the challenges of life and say, okay, I'm successful because of the things I've did and my accomplishments. I'm able to maintain uh, a household. I'm able to take care of my children and my responsibilities without running back home for help. And a lot of these people haven't done that, you know, and they weren't taught to do that. It made one person feel important to always be dependent on, but it crippled that child. In turn, cripples that grandchild because then you got two different sets of ideals. You got the grandparents' ideals of how to create a dependent person, and you got the parents' ideal of how to create a dependent person, and you got two different ways to make a child dependent on two different people. And by the time that person is an adult, they're no good to the people in their age group because they constantly need direction because they were taught to always live a life where they would have to be told what to do and they couldn't do anything on their own. They can't think for themselves. They can't budget. They can't reason. They can't um, actually be responsible for their own actions. There's always got to be an excuse. There's always something that can't be done because they don't have the They don't have the intellect nor the will to actually stop complaining and get it done. And when you're raising dependent adults, now you're sending them out into the world around people who aren't that baby fed, aren't that entitled, who actually had to work for a living, who actually did things and accomplished things and can take care of themselves. And now it's like this pseudo, not as competition with is not competition, because you got adults who are still connected to their parents' hip, looking at other adults like you ain't nobody just because you do grown up stuff and you handle your business. That doesn't mean anything. You don't have a good relationship with your mother or grandmother or father or grandfather. It's like you grown as hell at the house at your parents' house every day, and you worried about your relationship. You can pick up a phone and call your parents. You can go visit them. Problem is you live there. You eat their groceries every day. You ask them for money every day because you dependent on them because you still don't know how to take care of your damn self. They gotta help you take care of the kids. That's why your grandparents have more influence in your lives than your kids do, because you can't get your kids respect per se because they see you running to your grandparents to your parents for assistance all the time. So the way they look at it is like, damn. So this is what we do in this family. We don't get it done ourselves. We run to the older generation to do stuff for us that we should have already done for ourselves. And unfortunately, when those children of the grandparent, when the parents, or the children of the grandparents, have to take on that leadership role and actually be the grandparents, they suck too because they looking up, well, mama gone, I don't know what to do. Well, you got to take on that position. But I don't know how to take on that position because they always did it for me. So now you got dependent adults who are on the cusp of being dependent grandparents who gonna want their kids to take care of them the same way that their parents took care of them, and they're not gonna be able to take care of their grandkids, which is crazy to me. But this is what I'm seeing out here. So I'm out. Peace.